Hi there, KHOU meteorologist Kim Castro here, going to bring you the latest update on the tropical wave we've been watching day after day. It is finally here and it is doing what we expected it to, which is ushering in those rain bands and bringing us a very soggy day today and another soggy day tomorrow. Here are the main headlines with this system that we're watching. It is predominantly a rainmaker, so we don't really have to watch for the impacts of wind with this system. What we do have to watch for some isolated areas that are going to get the brunt of this wet weather that's moving in, especially looking at south of I-10 and east of 5969. Now we do have a very new flood watch that's in effect until tomorrow evening. That's going to come in phases and I'll show you why. So phase one of this flood watch is going to be for today, and the primary area of focus for today is going to be along the coast. The reason for that area of rotation, that tropical wave, has just been sitting pretty parked. So it's not really doing much in the way of moving, and that means that the rainfall that it's spitting out is not really moving either. It's staying very concentrated in the areas that it is dumping down the precip. And so for that reason, some areas that are low-lying, maybe they have poor drainage, they could see some flood potential, which is why we are watching for that. There are no active warnings at the moment, but we are on the lookout for the potential of some trouble spots on the road. Now that area expands as we head into the overnight and into tomorrow, and the reason for that, those bands are going to start moving, and they're going to start moving in a northerly and eventually an easterly trajectory. So the areas in green have to be on the lookout until tomorrow evening. That includes Harris County, that includes Fort Bend, Ward, Brazoria, Matagorda, Galveston, and Chambers, a little part of Liberty too. We'll be watching for a total of about 4 million people to see the risk for some ponding and maybe some very quick high water spots to rise. Satellite and radar is spitting out those showers, where they have been all morning long along the coastline. There, Galveston wanting to push into Whitney, and even Beaumont getting those outer rain bands starting to push into the area now. But the main convection, the stronger cells that have more potency, more juice, so to speak, that have the most precipitable water, the most accumulation, going to be along the coastline. And for that reason, radar has already indicated some significant totals over the last 6 hours. Now the areas there in orange, potentially counting a couple of inches. Again, these are radar indicated totals, so nothing that has been verified, but we could certainly start to see 1, 2, 3, maybe upwards of 4 inches of rain in some localized spots. Again, not widespread rain, but localized areas, seeing those bands kind of just persisting over and over again, leading to the stacking up of those rainfall totals. Now, as we look at future track potential rain, we could see some additional inches come into the mix. Models are hinting at potentially 1 to 2 inches as we head to Bush, potentially 1 to 2 inches for Hobby, Anahuac, Crystal Beach, Galveston, Beaumont could see some of the higher rainfall totals, again, because depending on where that low tracks, areas to the east are going to see the majority of that precip. But right now it's a little bit difficult to hone in on exactly where this low pressure area is. A lot of the models have it pushing north and a little bit northwest towards Corpus Christi, headed into Austin. A couple of models have it towards Matagorda Bay. So depending on if this shifts just a little bit, perhaps it goes right in the middle, that's going to adjust whether that rain goes directly towards the east of the city center, perhaps a little bit further towards the center. We will be watching that closely. It's still at a 40% chance to become a depression, but at this point, it just looks like it does not have enough organization for that. It definitely does have a lot of moisture though, which is why we have to watch this as a rainmaker and as a rain event. Future track for this afternoon, you'll notice the areas of convection start to dwindle. So for the most part, the rain that we do see along the coast is going to be a little bit less intense in nature. So it's going to back off a little bit, although we'll continue to add some of that rainfall, which is why we'll still watch for the threat for some flooding to happen there. Now, as we fast forward to time again, that really backs off. So we'll get a little bit of a break. We'll get a lull in the rain as we head into this evening. The cloud deck sticks around. Most of us are going to see temperatures stay in the low 80s along the coast, a little bit warmer the further north you go, because it's going to be a little bit of a lessened cloud deck, and certainly you're not going to be seeing rain-cooled air. So you'll be seeing the upper 80s, whereas along the coast you'll be seeing the low 80s because you've got the rain-cooled air and you've got a very thick cloud deck in place. Now, for when we could see some more widespread rain, that's going to happen overnight tonight and as we head into tomorrow. So make sure you plan ahead for that. If you've got to go somewhere early tomorrow, just make sure you're being extremely careful and definitely do not rush. So you're going to want to set your alarm maybe a half hour to an hour before you would normally want to wake up, just so that you don't feel the pressure to head out the door and you don't feel the pressure to be rushed on the road, because we're talking about that blinding rain potentially for a lot of spots tomorrow. So whereas this morning it was more isolated along the coast, you'll notice tomorrow the area of convection has definitely expanded, and most of us, or many more of us, will be seeing the impacts. So like I mentioned, it really wants to favor areas east of 5969. And that's for the start of the day. So that's a snapshot at 6:30 in the morning tomorrow. Heaviest rainfall is when we'll see that happen during the overnight hours and early tomorrow morning. Now, as we head into the lunch hour, we'll see more areas north of I-10 starting to get some rain, potentially into Walker County, Montgomery County, San Jacinto, Polk, Liberty. Then you'll start to see some of the green kind of in the northeast quadrant of our viewing area. And then finally starting to fizzle out as we head into the 4th of July weekend. Rainmaker for today and tomorrow predominantly. So those are going to be our rainiest days. Tomorrow will be the rainiest by far, and that's not only because it'll be the heaviest rainfall, but most of us will be impacted. That's when the majority of us will feel the wet weather. Today it's a little bit more isolated. By Saturday, we're still holding that at about a 50%, and that means 50% of the viewing area will see some sort of wet weather, but it'll be scaled back. So it won't be as torrential as what we'll see tomorrow morning. So it won't be that blinding rain, but it'll definitely be an isolated on and off shower as that system starts to break apart and fizzle out. Sunday into Monday, then we really drop things off to just a 20%, and that becomes far more isolated and far less impactful in terms of temperatures. So we go from the 80s today, we'll take it into the 80s again tomorrow because that cloud deck is thick. Breaks in the cloud by Saturday, still looking at those isolated shower chances. But then look at that, by Sunday into Monday, clouds really start to break apart, only at 20%. And so that will kind of open the gate to see some more of that sunshine to peek in, and then those temperatures to climb. So far, nothing has changed with Invest 95L, this area of interest that we've had along the Gulf, which means it still has a 40% chance for development, and that window is closing in very quickly. Time is ticking away because by the time it crosses through land, well, then that potential for it to become a depression completely goes away because its fuel source gets completely cut off. The reason why it's had a lot of issues trying to gain some momentum is because, well, it's really difficult to pinpoint exactly where the area of rotation is. We can see where the convection is, and perhaps you would think that's where the rotation is, but it's not. Once we turn on the wind particles, you can really see it's a very broad area of rotation north of Corpus, extending down into Brownsville. And so when it has this much of a kind of surface area and it doesn't close in and it's not consistently rotating, well, it just doesn't have the characteristics to become a defined low, and instead it just takes on the name of a tropical wave. Still though, all of this motion to try to get it to turn counterclockwise and have a nice rotation is ushering all of these rain bands. Just think of this as a hand kind of scooping in all of the moisture, and those fingers within the hand are those rain bands that are pushing in all that convection into our area because we are on the side of activity. The east side, the dirty side is what we'd call that in a tropical system or hurricane. So we are on the east side of that system, which is why we are getting the majority of the moisture. Now, something that is expected to get a name as we head into the late afternoon and evening hours is potential tropical cyclone 2, which is in the South Caribbean Sea. Now, by 7 o'clock, it's expected to have wind speeds that are a little bit increased from what they are right now. So right now, it's at 40 miles an hour, which would qualify this as a cyclone. However, it doesn't have that well-defined rotation. So we're just waiting on that defined rotation. Remember that we've been trying to see with ours, which will not happen. But for them, it's looking like a more likely scenario to see some rotations start to pick up by tonight and especially into tomorrow morning, which is why there are watches and warnings for tropical cyclone activity along the Costa Rica and Nicaragua coastline, and it's expected to gain momentum and head in that direction by 7 o'clock on Friday. It has slowed down a little bit, so right now it's moving west at 20 miles an hour, and this is aiding it in strengthening a little bit more. Remember, these systems need to move slowly, slow enough to be able to pick up on the resources, to pick up on the moisture in order to gain some more organization and some more intensity as they try to become a named storm. Now, notice right now it's not expected to break down and redevelop, which is why it would maintain its Atlantic name as it pushes into the Pacific. So for the Atlantic season, we've only had Alex. If this does become a named storm, which is expected to do so by tonight, it would take on the second name on the list, which is Bonnie. For us, remember, we're looking at a tropical wave with the main impacts being rain. And those main impacts will be happening overnight tonight into tomorrow. So just be very careful if you've got to commute early tomorrow. By the lunch hour onwards, things will start to quiet down a little bit. So we just have to get through a couple of hours of some potentially hazardous driving conditions. So just keep that in mind. If you can stay home, if you can work from home, maybe you have a job that's half remote, well then tomorrow would be a good day for you to open up the laptop at home and take it easy. Temperature-wise, because of that thick cloud deck, we're going to stay in the 80s today and tomorrow as we head into Saturday, and those rain chances start to drop off a little bit. They become a little bit more scattered. Well, the cloud cover becomes a little bit more scattered too, and temperatures are going to slowly start to climb. By Sunday and into our 4th of July Monday, those rain chances only at a 20%. That leads to some nice sunshine to welcome back into the forecast. And then by next week, we are back into the upper 90s, full sunshine, and a very isolated chance for some moisture. Remember, we are going to be here all evening and all morning. In fact, tomorrow we do have team coverage on the weather front. I'll be here with meteorologist Cheetah Craft, and we'll be watching the roads for you closely. So anytime you have a question, just make sure to reach out to us on social media. Otherwise, we will be updating you on the web, on social, on YouTube, and live on air.